What's up everybody, it's George T from the Wagon here. This week we're going to go over what it takes to install a motor like this into a bus like this. This is a bay window bus, a lot of extra steps involved, so let's get to it. So when you're purchasing a motor, if it's not specifically built for a bay window, there's quite a few things you're going to have to change. Number one being your full flow setup here. This is designed for no mustache bar in place. This mustache bar is our main problem. It wants to hang out here where a lot of other parts want to hang out. When Renee bought this, it already had an 1 5/8" A1 sidewinder on it. Unfortunately for a split bus or a Type 1 application, not for a bay window. This mustache bar, let me put that heavy son of a gun down. That mustache bar is in a direct path with the header pipe that came out right here. When I put it up next to it, I'll insert a picture in here, but you'll see it's about a 2-inch difference for making it to its mounting point, and this is in its way. Having a little bit of bay experience, not enough, but a little bit, I know a couple things. You need that right there. That is the GB239B. This is an oil pump cover made by Gene Berg specifically for bay windows. I also picked up a set of valve covers from Gene Berg because I like these a heck of a lot better than these cheap bolt-ons that are very problematic and leak. I've had them snap around here where they bolt together. Too many problems to keep those things on there. We got rid of the single carb manifold that had a really nice outlet for our brake booster because bay windows got a brake booster on them. And that requires a very large vacuum line, that's this sweet pickle right here, going from front to back, and this normally pulls directly off the manifold. Since we've lost that, because 48 IDAs don't have that application on them, imagine that, we're going to be hooking up this vacuum pump. We got this one here from Summit. So that's what we ended up getting. The Naked Bandit electric vacuum pump. Item number VP002. Comes with your pump, your hardware, your wiring loom, and then your vacuum line. It's going to run from pump to brake booster. Also, early bay specific is this back plate right here. You see that extension that VW put onto it? It's because the back of that has a much higher arch than any other of the Volkswagens before it. So that is a bay specific part that we'll be adding to it. We'll also be changing this out, that's wrong, and we're going to put a new seal on it anyways. We're also going to, since we've put a new fuel pump in this, if you look right there, we put our Carter pump in there. We usually mount the filter separate and we'll put a longer line in between for serviceability. Now you just undo that worm drive clamp, the filter comes out, replace it with another one, in and out. We're going to do an upgrade of the tank. You see we pulled the bung off there. We always check condition of sock and we change if necessary. We're putting a -6 outlet on the bottom of the tank, and we're going to put that dude right there on. This gives us a 5/16 outlet. We got 5/16 fuel line, ethanol safe fuel line. Another thing that helps us with is that outlet on that filter is a lot bigger than you would have coming off of anything factory. Now we are pushing 48s with these. This puts out a very consistent 4 PSI. He's not drag racing this before everybody throws in the comments how I need a big fuel system for this. I've got 2 buses with 48s on the road on that pump that have been running for years. As I mentioned before, you need a very specific header. I got this from Tiger over at A1. The best exhaust in the business, hands down. Sound, quality, everything. Can't beat a Tiger A1 exhaust. So this is bay specific. Look how long that is. Look how far that's coming back because he's avoiding the mustache bar with it. Look how far these come out. How far away from the engine it's going to go because of that mustache bar. So our first order of business is going to be removing everything we have in the front here so I can have access to our oil pump. We're going to change that oil pump cover. The Gene Berg setup is going to shoot it out that way because our mustache bar occupies this space. It goes behind it. So let's get to it. Since we're going to be taking that pulley off, we're going to put a flywheel lock on it. already gone through and changed out the studs. I've made sure that I can hand thread them into the case without any issues, any hang-ups. And now I'm going to remove them all and put some red Loctite on them to say this is going to give us better clamping force than if we have a bolt going into the case. There's a problem. You don't want that. Because you over torque that, you just ruin the case. You over torque this, most likely you're going to either ruin the nut or this stud right So we got that Gene Bird. This is the pressure relief. I like to run the pressure relief covers. Bay window, you see the funky angle on that. It's not coming straight out anymore. So once we put our fittings there, it's going to be shooting behind that mustache bar. Bay specific. So avoid that guy right there. But now you can see why we need that Bird oil pump cover designed for a bay window. Now that oil line will be able to connect back there. Like I said, still difficult, but it'll connect there. So I refer to my Without Guesswork book. Bought that at Busted by the Bridge for $5 off of Damon Dayton. Always pick these up if you see them. They have every torque spec you need. So it has the M8 and the M10s listed as 18 foot-pounds. So we're going to hit those up. I would assume it's 18 foot-pounds because it's a bolt going into that case. It doesn't want to just yanking the threads out. Alright, so I put that piece of tape there. I just hit it with a little bit of Sharpie and make it disappear. Fully covers the majority of it. That little bit will allow hot air in. We live in Vegas, so we take things to the extreme over here when it comes to trying to control heat. And that is one thing I always do. I'll always seal that hole up. We'll have the full rubber seal in here when it's done. Keep the hot side hot and the cold side cold is what we're shooting for on this. It's an air-cooled motor, not an oil-cooled. All right, grabbing our book. Crankshaft pulley bolt. We follow it over. It's obviously the M20 by 125. Then when you hear 40 to 47 pounds, that's all you have to put on that. It should not be, I shouldn't need a breaker bar to remove the pulley. We have an A1 flange sidewinder header, part number SWHT158-DLX, Deluxe. The Deluxe meaning it's made of stainless, it's got the V-band on it. So you can see when the mustache bar is in place, why you need this specific header. It's really moved the exhaust out a little further. You have a lot more openness over here. You'll see this, the whole curlicue of the regular sidewinder is right here, right where all this stuff is. So it tried to occupy the same space, not going to work. But these headers are absolutely beautiful, very nice and easy to install. Just remember, when you're done installing it, you need to give the whole thing a wipe down. I use denatured alcohol. If you leave a fingerprint on it, on first fire up, that'll get burned right in the stainless. You can remove it with some Scotch-Brite, but you're better off just cleaning the whole header off and let it get that nice golden hue that you get from a run stainless steel exhaust. I've come through and I've removed the M8 hardware that bolted the valve cover onto it, and I've replaced them with a wave washer and a nut. And we torque those down 18 foot-pounds. Same on this side. I've got a couple of stock bales here. I'm going to blast them, find my cleanest ones, paint them silver, and then we're going to snap those stock valve covers on. We got to transfer our 2 breather holes and our 1 hole for the fuel line, so we can get everything that was going through the other firewall through this firewall. So there's a side-by-side comparison. This is a bay window. This is a bay window. This is your standard Type 1 and split bus. Basically, if it had a Type 1 motor and it's not going in a bay window, this is the backing plate you'd have. As soon as you go to put in a bay window, they have this much higher arch in the back. So you can see VW added that piece to it. When you lay them over, this is the same as that, but VW added that to it. You can see right there, it's a secondary add-on piece. Alright, so what we gotta do, we're gonna take these holes that we put in this one, and transfer them over. Instead of putting them here, I've been contemplating putting them there, just because we have the room. This puts a very extreme bend. When I'm coming out of here and going into the valve cover here, puts a really hard bend on the breather line. I'd prefer to have it up here to where it's a much smoother bend. I still put an internal spring into my breather lines that go there, so they cannot get pinched and it stops breathing. So I think we're going to go for this spot here. Go to the highest point right there. And I'll split that difference. I'm going to do the same thing over here. Highest point, split that difference. We're going to cut our holes for our breathers into this elevated area over here. I'm going to use my roto cut to give me the size I need for my knockout to fit in there. These are actually what they use, like electricians use these, and they're great for punching perfect holes into tin and you won't distort it, you won't rip it apart, any of the stuff that you get from using the wrong cutter on it. So I like using the knockouts for breathers. That 3/4, I believe, knockout right there is perfect for it. So first thing I do is I find out what my overall dimension is. I marked it already where I wanted them, and I basically put them at the widest point, so I have the most meat there. So I'm going to take my caliper. I see that I got 43.75. We're basically going to try and split that in half. We'll round up to 44 and go to 22. If I'm a little shy, it's okay, because remember, I rounded up anyways. So I'm going to go with that 21.94. Give that a tighten there. Get my mark there. I got my mark there. We're going to take the punch. We've got our mark here, that basically that scratch I made in the paint right there. Find a happy center on our line. That's going to be for our roto cut. So this is going to go into the drill bit. I always put slick stick on my Hogan bits when I'm using them. If you don't, they get destroyed real quick. One more item I have to address is we have a bulkhead coming through. It was coming through at that point there, and it's for the hard AN fuel lines, so we need to up this hole to that size there. So we got a 14mm hole there. Get a step bit, hoping that dude probably takes 9/16, if it's the American step bit I got. So this is that piece that we're working on here. It's far from perfect. You can see right there someone's done a little bit of welding repair, not done very well. It's very wrinkly. You know, someone made it into a doghouse. This wasn't apparently initially a doghouse with the way this is bent up, or they just deformed it. And you got another beautiful weld right there on that piece. What I'm doing right now is making it look showable, not show quality, but showable. Before, it was rusty and old and it would look out of place on this. We're just going to put a clean coat of satin black on it, and that's all we're going for. I've got the header hung here loosely, like it's actually not bolted in, it's in place. I put my J-tubes in place to see if everything lines up. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to put just a small pea-sized drop of copper RTV on the J-tube and a little bit on that post there. Same on this side. And I'm going to actually put those parts together first. So This pipe here, it's a slip fit. It indexes into that one, as does this pipe. So that's why you don't just hard mount everything right away. You have to make sure that everything's going to line up front to back on this. Quick discussion about hardware. For the heads, I'm using the 12mm header bolts. These are made of copper, I believe. You can see that little split right there. That's what actually makes it a locking bolt when that's smashed in a little bit. Inside here, we got the Impy drop-in copper gaskets, 1 5/8" to match your header. At my flange, there, I'll be using an M8 by 125 by 30, and that's what I'm referring to when I say a length. The 30 is how long it is. So M8 by 125 by 30. We got an M8 wave washer, and I have an M8 nut there that is a 10mm exterior and flange. These are special order kind of stuff. Also have the ultra copper, that's going to be my gasket for the area. I also have all my tools ready to go to tighten this up. First point I'm going to connect is going to be my flanges to make sure that they're lined up as best as possible, and then I'll start tightening it at the heads, all four. There we go. We're bolted up with the flanges. We did the RTV method on these. I spoke to Tiger. He says you can use a Vanagon exhaust gasket there or the RTV method. I'm going with the RTV method. They're such a nice fit. I mean, if you look at that, they're beautiful. We got our BMW header bolts tightened up there, the M12s, with our Impy drop-in copper gaskets dropped in after the fact. Sorry for the angle, didn't realize how little you could actually see those up there. J-tubes mounted up. I'm not going to hang them up until we get in the car. It's just going to make it more difficult to stab. So this part we'll do when it gets into the vehicle. My piece is drying. Let's see. That tin is drying right there. Once I'm comfortable enough to play with it, we'll put that dude on, get the motor lines buttoned up, or the beetle lines buttoned up in the back. I got to straighten that up. Kind of goofy, huh? There's that one heck of a kickback. I gotta straighten this dude up. And I think we'll be stabbing motors. Well, I forgot I gotta change the oil, so I'm gonna flip it over, and I got a Roswell Phyton gasket I'm gonna put on that back on the bottom of the sump plate. And we're gonna adjust the valves in this motor as well. So I showed you in that video, there's a spring internally here to keep it from pinching shut. It's like a radiator trick. Radiator hoses had springs in them when they made tight bends, so they wouldn't pinch off the flow. So I do the same thing there. It's got this fancy hardware on here. Alright, we got to put our two vents in the back. our exit scoop and then our shroud that goes over there. And then we're done with all of our externals that are bolted on. We got some suspect activity going on here. That's the pickup, the oil pickup. It's not secure. When they built the engine, they didn't put the proper hardware there. That's not actually indexed in that stud like it's supposed to be right there. And this thing just floats around. So all it's going to do is disconnect from the case, and then you no longer have suction. Only if it's touching where that tube goes in would you have any oil flow at all, and that's going to be pretty much none. I can tell you that right now. At the end of this thing, like it was beat with a hammer to put in there. Absolute freaking craziness. When is a deal no longer a deal?